All right, I think I'm going to get rolling. Uh, I'm thrilled to be here today. This day is a long time coming, and I'm very excited to be here to talk to you about Omnibus for booksellers and this new platform. I'm Dave Lucy, and I am part of the Omnibus team here at Edelweiss, and I have a couple of my teammates with me, Gabriella, Eve, and Paige. Eve and Paige will be answering questions in the chat, and so fire them out as you get them. We may cover things, but that's fine too. And then at the end, we'll have a little bit of time for some Q&A. So feel free to get the questions out there though, and we will answer them as we go. All right, cool. Uh, just order of operations here. I got a couple of slides just to set the table, just so you kind of understand what Omnibus is. And then I've got most of the time will be spent actually in the system demoing it. And then at the end, we'll have time for some Q&A and then we'll wrap up. So that's what things look like. Right. So why are we here? Book selling looks so different than it used to, right? Cafes, beer and wine, pop-ups, festivals, school fairs, offsite events. Stores are running multiple revenue streams under one roof or even no roof. The four walls in a register model is just one of many. And that diversity demands flexibility. Collecting tips, splitting revenue streams, running a cart at a farmer's market with no Wi-Fi, your tools really need to keep up. Newer point of sale systems like Square are great at the register. And I brought one of the ones we use at my store, which is Page 158 Books in Wake Forest, North Carolina. This is a mobile device that we use at all of our offsite events, but also it's a beautifully built purpose, take payments, beautiful system. We also use it in the store when the lines get long and you can build, just walk around and bring people out. It's fantastic. It works great, but the system itself doesn't speak bookstore at all. So there's no concept of special orders or pub dates or book metadata or replenishment logic for that matter. So workarounds become the order of the day. Booksellers, we deserve tools that actually are built for how we work and not adapted from generic software like what Square is doing and other platforms out there. Omnibus is the book brain behind your register. I like the tagline there. Square's the register. It's where you check customers out, you take payments, you run transactions. They're great at it, and we're not trying to replace that. Omnibus is everything behind the register. So I liken it to the bookstore operating system. It's where you manage your inventory, handle your customer special orders, replenish your stock, optimize your vendor ordering, receive shipments, all the book specific work that happens before and after the sale. Think of it as the book brain layered on top of the transaction engine. So Square and Omnibus talk to each other in real time, so what gets sold at the register is immediately reflected in your inventory and Omnibus. It's one place where everything connects, and you don't have to stitch these systems together with manual workarounds. The system was built by the book industry professionals at Edelweiss, people who have spent years embedded in the world of publishers and reps and independent booksellers and understand deeply how the industry operates. And we built it with booksellers, not just for them. I'm a bookseller, and myself and over 40 stores participated in our beta program and had direct input into every part of the product. We're out of beta now, but we're still gathering feedback and improving every day. And that collaborative relationship with stores won't stop. Like Square, the learning curve is minimal. It's modern, it's web-based, and it's mobile friendly, perhaps most important. If you can use Square, you can use Omnibus. So today our Square integration is live, and whether you use Square as your primary point of sale or a secondary point of sale for offsite events and pop-ups, you could connect to Omnibus and start using it right now. On the roadmap, we're working to support additional point of sale platforms, building an e-commerce website, so that would be part of Omnibus, and then adding sideline vendors to the catalog. In addition, we're adding EDI ordering. We just had our first successful real live order with Bookazine on Tuesday. That was the first EDI integration that we've stood up, and we're working with several others, actively, but they take time because there's a lot of moving parts with EDI ordering and publishers and distributors. As well as we have we'll have seamless integration with a lot of Edelweiss functionality, and I'll talk about some examples of that when we get into the demo, but some areas that are really, really exciting. So the ecosystem is going to keep growing around how bookstores work. And before we get into the demo, I just wanted to show really quickly some feedback that we've received from the beta testers as they're using it. And I think they kind of speak for themselves, but I just wanted to share a couple of nice examples. All right, let's roll into the demo. What we're looking at here is the dashboard. So this is sort of the landing page of Omnibus. And it gives you these widgets which have various elements of data on them and give you a kind of a snapshot of things, how things are going in the store. We also have this thing literally called a snapshot that pulls up data from various parts of the platform and shows you what's happening there. So, what's our inventory value currently? Sales history will populate here in a second. How many shelving codes we have, and how many items are missing codes, because we all know that happens, and a little bit of information about our customer. So it kind of gives you a real quick look at some health things that some of those things are customizable too. And one important thing about the dashboard is that the dashboard itself is configurable, so you can hide and move these around, or hide and show things as you deem they're important to you. But also we have the ability to create roles in the system. So like in my store, we have a couple of generic logins, like the front register has a login and the back register has a login. And they don't typically get involved in the logging in on those registers or on those computers isn't involved in like ordering anything or anything like that. They're more geared towards looking up books for customers, dealing with special orders, reservations, things like that. So we can create these roles that limit the functionality that those IDs would see when they were logged in. So every user in your system can have a login and they see the parts that they need. So your receiver can make sure they see the receiving, your buyer can have ordering and catalogs and receiving. And then the people that are frontline booksellers can have the elements that they need to see what they need to do. So it's a really cool way to build a platform, is to give you that granularity that you want, that's specific to your store rather than be prescriptive about it. And I think a good example of that is how Square handles it, and it's very prescriptive, and it's really limiting in some cases where you have to give people access to things that you really don't want to, so that they could do other things. We've given you that ability to control that here. I wanted to touch on inventory is sort of a core kind of, concept here in the platform, really. It's what everything is driven around. So I wanted to just go over a couple of quick things in the inventory space before we dive into kind of a daily workflow and how my store uses the platform. And I think a lot of the other beta stores are using the platform. There's a concept here around managing the inventory as a system of record in Omnibus, so that what you're doing in Square is really handling the transaction and not having to maintain things in two different systems. So you use Omnibus as that system of record. You're creating the items there. You're managing your shelving codes there. I'm sorry, I'm on hotel Wi-Fi, so I'm a little slow at the moment, but they'll load up in a second and we'll get there. And you see the data there. But we're tracking cost of goods here so that you don't have to track it in Square. What that means from a Square perspective is that you can probably use the free version of Square unless you're using something else that requires the paid version, because that's one of the main differences. All your ordering and everything is in Omnibus, so you don't need to worry about having purchase orders or anything like that in Square and managing that part of the system. So all of those elements are here, and all the reporting that you'd want to do to get all the data is here. All the analytics are here. So there's really no point in having the higher paid tiers of Square. So for example, under the inventory valuation, you can see it's, the data is all populated now, and we're measuring costs using first in, first out, which is pretty standard. So as you receive things and sell them, that first cost is applied to that item as it's sold. You can kind of see a picture of how your database looks, right? And this is telling me that there's 10 items in my system without cost data. So I've got pretty much everything costed, which is nice. Um, but I'm missing some things. Another element that you can see here is discount banding. So you can kind of get a picture for where your inventory is sitting as far as discount goes, which in this store, I would say this is probably they're a little light on higher margin product, right? They may want to consider expanding their sideline business because they're pretty light on the above 50% margin items. And if you use Abacus to do any of your manager store, that's typically one of the main differences between the least profitable stores and the most profitable stores is that they have a good margin mix of the two um, or with sidelines typically being the higher margin items. You can also see value by title, so where your money is tied up with each item as far as cost goes. So that's some elements that are shown here. The shelving codes are the physical locations in the store again. So every item that exists within the Omnibus library is already categorized using the BISAC category that's assigned by the publisher. So you don't need to mimic that in your store setup. In my store, we've over the 10 years we've been in business, we've kind of gone around a lot of different a lot of different ways over the years. We finally settled on putting BISAC there because we needed it when we were looking up items and trying to figure out, where they should go in the store and things like that. But really, now that that data is living in Omnibus, it's so much better to have the physical location be the shelving code that's assigned to an item. And this allows us to um, do a couple of things. One is, and I don't know why it's taking so long to load, but one of them is around audits, which audits really are like inventory cycle counts, things like that. So the mechanism that you can use to cycle count sections should be that physical location where things are in the store. So that you could assign, say, somebody's going to go look at the animal section and count those books. And when you run an audit on a section and you complete it, this is the result. It starts to fill out this table where you can see, what the discrepancies were. So, we've had some issues in atlases and scarves and hats. And this allowed just a quick glance at this. You kind of, maybe the atlases are too close to the front door or something like that. And or maybe there's a problem with the receiving process if things are not if they're not there. So it kind of gives you a quick glance of looking at, number one, how often you're counting your sections. And then the plan is we're going to have, every section counted over the course of a year. So you can kind of manage that process. We're also building the ability to do a sort of the once a year typical inventory that you do, in addition to the cycle counts, and we're building that functionality out now. So I hope that gives you just a little bit of picture of the background of how the inventory is structured within the platform and how it's going to pull into all the other areas that'll show you. But now I want to show you like how my team uses it on a daily basis. And we start with the replenishment report. So I'm looking at, what did we sell yesterday and what do I need to reorder from either the publisher or a distributor for whatever reason. And so I'm looking at the data of items that sold yesterday, and it's telling me various elements of information here, like how many I sold. I sold 2 of this book, and I can see that this is giving me a little bit of a sales history, so I can see lifetime, and how many was sold in 30, 60, 90 days. This information is meant to give you, what you need to make the decisions to move to move on to placing an order. And you can filter here. So right now I'm just showing things that are totally sold out. If you use stock alerts in Square, that's what this is meant to represent, is they're at a stock alert threshold. This will show everything that's still in stock, and then all stock levels will show everything regardless of whether there's some still on hand or not. Sometimes that's important, sometimes it's not. Mainly you kind of use the out of stock at 0 You can look at things that are actually on order already, or you just want to filter on the things that don't have any pending orders in the system. So meeting publisher, orders to the publisher or to a distributor. So I don't want to reorder something um, that I already have on order necessarily. So uh, I don't know if you have that problem. It's a pretty common problem in my store. So you can also search by vendor, shelving codes. So again, store location, and then if you just want to focus on new releases, something like that, you can filter on those things. Um, so selecting a couple of items here and clicking the process selections adds these items to a to be ordered list. This to be ordered list is pulled from multiple places. So if you look at the source column here, you'll notice the replenishment, which is the report that we were just on. But there's also events. So you have the ability to create an event in the platform, and I'll show you that a little bit later. And there's a fun Edelweiss integration in the future that we're working on right there. That's very exciting. But if you were ordering books as a result of creating an event for a particular author or whatever, a school event, something like that, and you say, I need to get some of these books, put it on the to be ordered list. And now my buyer knows exactly where these things are coming from. There's one here that's missing. This is from a scratch pad, and I'll show you that a little bit later. And we're working on adding that code here so that it shows that it came from a scratch pad, which is kind of a cool concept. Other codes you can see here are receiving damage. So this is a book that came in damaged, and we wanted to get another copy of it. So it added it to the to be ordered list so that the next time a buyer orders from that particular vendor, that we'll get another copy of it. Special orders indicates that a customer order has come in for this, and we need to get a copy of it for the customer. With that, I just want to very quickly pop over to the customer reservations to show you what a customer order is, just show you how this looks. So these are customer orders in various states. A couple of things that are I think pretty cool is your ability to see pre-orders at a click, export them into various formats so that you can action on them as you need it. You can see things that need to be set aside. So these are books that are probably in stock, hopefully in stock because it says they're in stock, and you want to allocate them to those customer orders. So this is something that you could, again, print an Excel file or a PDF and have somebody walk around and grab them. Or because this is mobile enabled, you could literally have somebody walk around with their phone, bring this up, and then as they grab the two from the shelf, allocate the two from stock. Well, I don't have enough of that one anymore. But you could have them allocate the items from stock, and that will process, like move the order to the next stage of ordering, saying like, oh, we have the books, let's notify the customer. So you could have somebody just walk around with their phone to do that, which is really cool. All right, so let me go back to the to be ordered list. So from the to be ordered list, I have the ability to add things to specific orders. If I want, I could remove them from to be ordered list. I could add them to a scratch pad. I could adjust the quantities of them, and I can change the shelving codes. But why do all that work with tons and tons of items on the to be ordered list when I can just click optimize vendor analysis and a vendor assignment, sorry. And this system is going to look at all the items, look at the vendors that we buy them from, because it has all that data from Edelweiss. And then we have the ability, it's going to create basically draft orders, if you will. These are not these won't stay if I leave this screen. These will go away, and I have to regenerate this list. But what it's doing is it's saying, okay, you've got these items from Penguin. There's 245 items that would go onto that order. Hachette would be here. HarperCollins would be here. And then you have the ability to just create the order right from here. One click and create the order. If I have pending orders already existing, it will tell me like, hey, you've already got a Hachette order going. You've already got a Penguin order going. You want to add the items to that, you can do that too. So one of the things that I wanted to show here is how did it get there? Why did it, what analysis and what was it doing? And what it does is there's some parameters that you can configure. And based on where the order is coming from, either a replenishment report or a special order for a customer, you have weighting that's associated with it. So on replenishment orders, I'm much more interested in getting the best discount. And it's okay if it takes a little bit longer to get there. But on a special order, I want it fast. So I want to get that from a distributor. I'm less likely to care about the discount. It can be a little bit less than normal from the publisher. So it's doing that weighting. If you need to see why a book was put there, you can click on this and it will show you each item on that order and what the weighting was if you want to get really into it to see why it's there. And you can also move it and change it to a different order if you needed to. Say, nope, actually that one I need quickly, so I'm going to get that one from Ingram or Bookazine instead. And that will give you the flexibility that you need on each of those. The other thing you'll notice here is that it's indicating that this order is meeting minimum requirements. So when you configure vendors, you're plugging in things like Hachette has a dollar amount, Harper has a quantity, Ingram has a quantity, you know, so you can configure each one based on what their actual minimum order details are, and you can actually have it so that it will enforce those things strictly, or kind of just tell you that, hey, you're under the minimum. Because sometimes it's sometimes you do need to order out of what you normally would do. So really quickly, let me show you the vendor um, the optimization screen just so you can get a visual of what that looks like. And you can see here I've selected replenishment orders, and it's telling me that a discount is rated higher than delivery speed. You also have some additional functionality on replenishment orders, particularly that it can get into analyzing your sales and enable like optimizing your turn rates, things like that, and making recommendations for quantities and things. On a special order, you'll see the slider is, all the way up basically almost for delivery speed, because that's the most important thing in this scenario. We want to make darn sure that we get it quickly for the customer's order. So once we've created the order from that screen, we're now a position where we can place the order with the publisher. So if I click into one of these, you're going to see a couple of options. And the way that this works today, because we're just getting started with the EDI integrations, and like I said, we've got Bookazine is up and running. We'll be rolling that out to customers shortly. We're working with Penguin actively and several other publishers. But again, there's a lot of moving parts in those things, and the publishers have the work to do. We have work to do on each side, so they take a little bit of time to configure and get set up. But the future state is that any publisher that has EDI ordering, you'll be able to come into the order like this and click send order, and it will electronically transmit to them. When you do that, it would move to the submitted state, and then once they send back their acknowledgement file, it would change to acknowledged. When they ship it, we'll get a shipment notification, and that comes into play in the receiving world. And then finally, when it's invoiced, the invoice will be here. Another sort of future state that we're working on, and that's on our roadmap, is would love to connect this to batch so that your reconciliation between the two could be sort of automatic, and there could be some indicator here that this invoice is matched to one that's on batch, so that just by looking at it that things have been reconciled. And perhaps there could be some indicator on batch that it's been reconciled back here as well, so that as you're going through that process, you have the ability to really quickly see and not have to manually do that reconciliation. Another thing that I want to just quickly show on this order is this little icon PB. This will show up in various places, but there's one here, so let me show it to you here. What this is telling me is that there's a hardcover on this order, but there are paperbacks in existence. So this is something that I do every time I'm covering for our buyer when she's on vacation or something, is I order the hardcover by mistake, because it happens, right? You get a lot to get done, you're moving fast, and accidentally you put the wrong version in. And in this scenario, you could just pick the paperback. In this scenario, I really wanted the hardcover because it's for a customer order, and I can see that here because it's for a special order. And I do know that the customer actually wanted that, so I'm going to order the hardcover. But it gives me that flag to indicate, like, hey, double check this. You may have wanted to order the paperback here. So again, future state EDI, we'll be able to click send order. Today, what we're doing is you have the ability to sync with an Edelweiss order and connect this right over to an order that is in the traditional Edelweiss system, and you can notify your rep, or you can download and go to their portal and place it like you normally did. But in the Square world, this concept was completely outside and manual. So it's still a nice process. What the other thing that's happening here is when you order items, they're automatically getting created in your Square system so that you don't have to manually create them. So that's a huge leap forward in the Square world. That's not something that we currently have the ability to do, is pretty much automatically create anything. So it's really exciting to be able to do that. So once the vendor ships a product, we get that shipment notification, and a shipment will be created. And now the shipment is a really interesting concept, and it has some pretty wide ranging impacts, and it's really great. One of the things that it allows for is the ability to scan a barcode, usually on the box from the publisher, as long as they provide that barcode, that will bring up the shipment. So your receiver can just scan the barcode on the box and see, here's everything that's in that box, because they're sending everything that's shipped on that, regardless what PO number it's on. So you don't have to go searching for POs anymore and receive line item by line item. You're bringing up a shipment and seeing everything that's in it. In this, like for example, in this case, there's just one item on this particular shipment, but I want to call your attention to the fact that it's telling me that it's on a customer order. So from right here, I have the ability to receive this and notify, like I allocate it to the customer order and notify the customer and do all those great things because it's all connected. It's all in the same system. Another thing that's really cool here is if you hit review, so stage means, this is good, it came in, it's fine. If you hit review, you've got some options here, and you can make some comments here, but you can also say, something was damaged and perhaps you need to add pictures of it or whatever, but you can do all those things. And once you flag something as damaged, it creates a discrepancy report for that order. And it starts some tracking that's really interesting. But on the discrepancy report, our vision here is that we'll be able to submit these reports via email to the vendors that allow for that. So we'd love for every vendor, every publisher to have a standard return damage claim process. They don't. Hopefully someday we'll get there, but for somebody that does take a damage claim via email, we'd be able to submit that report to them directly from here, and you wouldn't have to go into your email system and then send something, wait to hear back, all that good stuff. You'd be able to submit it right from here. As other potential, there are many solutions to this problem, but we could electronically also notify a publisher if that was something that they had built into their EDI system. But again, it's a very publisher by publisher kind of scenario. Sometimes you have to go to their portal, sometimes you have to call them, sometimes you email. Hopefully we can get everybody to move over to a simple system like email, and that would be fantastic. And again, just try to speed up that process. Once you have that, a history of sort of receiving here, in the metrics area, there's some pretty, let me expand this to a little bit wider time range. So you can see like how many receipts you've had from vendors, and then how many are damaged, how many were short. So you're starting to get some really good data on how things are going in the receiving world. Another filter that I think we're going to add or be able to add here is by vendor, right? So that if you're going to be meeting with Penguin and you want to talk to them about, geez, our damages have been going through the roof, you can actually bring this up. You can have real data to show them, which is really, really powerful. And I really feel like this is, we should be able to do this today, but we can't. So this is a fantastic addition to our capabilities. Just want to show you a couple more things that are kind of outside the normal of what I think you would expect from a platform like this, but I think it's extremely useful. And that is, like, we have a staffing and scheduling system that's built off of the concept of something like the app When I Work, so that you don't have to have an additional system to manage your scheduling. You can manage it all here. It has all the basic functionality that you would expect: notifications, shift swapping, templates to say, this is my standard for Tuesday of what of staffing needs. I mentioned before adding events to your system, and what's kind of neat here is there's a couple events created, and those will show on the calendar, which makes it easier for scheduling. But also, there's a real opportunity here to tie into the existing event grid system that is through Edelweiss. So the vision being that you apply for an event on Edelweiss, and it could create, if you wanted it to, a requested calendar status event on your in-store calendar. And this is just an internal calendar that you use. In my store, we use Google calendars for these things. Like, so we have a placeholder, if you will, in place on a internal only calendar that we use to manage scheduling all of the events, because just as you know, there's a multitude of things happening at any given moment. And it's not always, author events, it's book clubs and other uses of your space that it need to be captured somewhere. So this system is meant to capture any event and be able to, have all the data that you could need around there, including some interesting things like having event to-dos. If you needed to assign a task member to make sure that the chairs are set up, or order food, or whatever the case may be, you can create tasks and assign them to team members to do that work. And then you can see, a picture of how your events across the board. Another thing that I'm really lobbying for, because it drives me crazy that we have to go to so many different places to create our events. Once an event is booked and finalized, I'm going to the Facebook page, I'm going to the website, I'm going to some local places to let them know about an event. And some of those are just emails that I have to send to, 6 different local calendar, type sites, Visit Raleigh and those sorts of things. And we can automate all those things. So we're working on that. That's an enhancement request from Booksellers, that we, connect this to other platforms and be able to have those events. Once they hit certain states, you'd be able to check some boxes and make it go. So that's exciting. And again, back to the calendaring thing, is as you're working on your schedule, having one place where all the things that are happening in your store are captured on one calendar allows you to schedule more effectively, right? You're not bouncing back and forth between multiple systems. It's all right here for you to look at. And I could see an enhancement coming down the road, where we're doing some staffing kind of mapping to this, where we're making suggestions and saying, you've got an event, you're going to need automatically detecting the fact that an event exists on the calendar, and that you're going to need event staff to work that event, potentially, if that's how your store does it. So I could see having that. You can also map all of your rep appointments here, so that they're on your calendar and everybody knows when they're happening. Because if you forget and somebody's got to be pulled off the floor because now they're going to go meet with a rep, that's not great. So you can have all of that data in one spot. All right. So one other quick thing that I wanted to show you is another thing that is not really typically part of other systems, but I think is a pretty cool use of technology here, is scratch pads. And there's a million uses for this, right? These are kind of like collections in Edelweiss. And the idea, though, here is that these are tied in, because they're tied into this. It's very easy to take things from this and then put them onto a to be ordered list, or an order itself. So if you couple of dual purpose ways that we're planning, that we use it in my store, is we have books that, we always have to have in stock so that Suzanne can sell them, right? She has, her favorites. She has to make sure that these are always on hand so that she can sell. So now my buyer can check this list if she's working on, a Penguin order, and see like, oh, we're out of this Jenny Lawson book. I better make sure I grab some for Suzanne. So she's going to grab 2 and throw it onto the to be ordered list. And it stays here, but it's now added onto the to be ordered list. So the next time she does her run, she can add it there. She could also add it directly to an order if that's what she's doing. But this is also super helpful for capturing things like staff picks. If I'm out of the store and my shelf is empty because it sells out all the time, because that's just how this works. staff can go in and go, oh, what's on Dave's faves this week? So they'll go in, be able to pull the books from, from my favorite shelf and restock it for me so that they're not just putting random books up there like they sometimes do. Um, so again, given another avenue for the buyer though to be able to go say, I'm putting in a Harper order. What, how are we doing on these? Are we in stock? We're in pretty good shape. Do I need to get any of these? That sort of thing. Also working on a couple of things in the analytics space, adding some, you may be familiar with the shelving code grid or the category grid, where we're looking at inventory turns. We're working on building this out right now. And then another piece of functionality that's connected to that is sort of the ability to automate returns and be able to generate lists based on what you're either working on or like, for example, you could say, we're going to work on the kids section today, or we're going to work on Penguin today, and Penguin Kids, putting all those things together and having it do the analysis for you to say, here are all your stale items that you should consider returning that meet those criteria, and providing that list to you. So then you could say, yes, 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 add these, just like you did with the to be ordered list, selecting them, add them to a return, have someone process, go pull them, and then create all the documentation that you would need, like the packing list and whatnot, that you would keep in the box for your return. But again, you can see some interesting data by checking out the grids and what your fastest growing sections are, what your most overstocked sections are, and maybe you should make some adjustments to how much square footage you're allocating to each area. That was one thing on the shelving section that I wanted to point out, is that on each shelving section you have the ability to actually indicate how much square footage you have allocated to that particular area, which will allow you to do some analysis across the store and really be able to analyze, is it just in my imagination that we're selling more romance right now, or should I shrink this other section to accommodate so that we can expand romance? Now you've got data that you could go back to and really dig in on that. So with that, I am going to move out of the demo, and I wanted to get back to just show you two quick things. First is the pricing for this. It's $49 per store per month. It's no percentage of sales, anything like that. It's pretty straightforward, and it's going to as of right now, we have this founding retailer offer going where you get half off for the first 90 days. You get priority EDI set up as we roll on those EDI vendors, and that pricing is held through 2026. And then obviously your direct input into the future plans, right? Because you're being able to weigh in on and give us feedback on all these things. So with that, you can sign up for a free trial, and connect it to your Square's data if you're using Square, or you can actually see a fully stocked demo store. So right now you could go today and test that out and kind of kick the tires and see how you like it. And if you're ready to get on the bus, sign up. All right.
All right, I think it's time for me to pepper you with some questions from the chat. There were a
Okay.
lot of wonderful questions coming in, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. But if we don't get to your question or you're still confused, just email us at support@abovethetreeline.com and we will answer you there.
We do
So,
have some office hours coming up, right? I think, was that going to
yes.
put, I don't know if that got put in the chat because I can't really see it, but
I think that we can have Even Page put our office hours in the chat for Omnibus. Um, okay, so I'm going to start baseline.
okay.
Um, so what does like there's some questions about like what does Omnibus replace? Like is it being used in addition to our current POS, but not a replacement for it? Is it just another tool to use? Just I think
Yeah,
reiterating
yeah,
the concept.
yeah.
Yeah.
So conceptually, think of so there's kind of two parts to this, right? Is you need a transaction engine and the a credit card processor to be able to handle payments and ring people up, and then you need your bookstore specific systems. And in the market today, there are things like Square and Clover and Lightspeed and Shopify that fit that sort of front, but do not have any of the bookstore specific functionality. So Omnibus is connecting with those, right? So that's the idea, is that our future integrations would include things like Shopify. That's probably next on the list. Square is the most popularly used non-bookstore specific platform in the industry. So the numbers are there. There's so many stores using it and more coming online every year. I can't remember what the ABA number was off the top of my head, but they had some numbers around this that were pretty staggering, honestly, and surprising. But it's a low cost way to get into the business, right? And what personally what I like about this is that a lot of stores start out on Square and they have no bookstore framework at all. They have no concept of what structure and what a bookstore operating system really should look like, right? How do they run their business? And this is giving them that structure. So they're starting out in a much smarter, much more uh, functional way rather than learning things the hard way and having to scrap through and come up with crazy workarounds in Google Sheets, like a lot of stores have done. So that's what it's meant to be right now. Now, I suppose um, if you have a bookstore specific uh, platform, you might already have a lot of that functionality. You might not have all of it, but you might have some of it. So I think that would be a individual store, decision of moving to something like this in Square versus something like Booklog or something like that.
That is the next question I was going to ask. So if like Omnibus people are saying maybe they have some of this functionality via Basil or Anthology, like is there what it would be the advantage of using Omnibus?
Yeah, so I think there's some functionality that none of those systems have, right? That's baked into and built into it. And the other thing I would say is it's a modern platform, right? We're not requiring you to have it's all cloud-based, it's mobile friendly. You can run this on your iPhone or your Android, your MacBook. You're not required to have a server in your store. You're not required to buy PCs. You're not limited in your technology decisions. It's very flexible in that regard. You can pretty much use whatever you want to use and what you already have. Really, I think that's important. So from a cost perspective, I think there's some very attractive situation to consider there. Of course, you got to train your staff and things like that, but when you have a platform that's modern and easy to use and intuitive, which is, arguably what we're trying to achieve here is to give you
Mhm.
something that's intuitive and easy to use. We do have a very strong in the platform on the lower left is a little icon. We have a whole slew of little snippets of training videos of basically just how to do different things in the platform. So if it does get confusing, there's somewhere to go. There's good help available. So hopefully that
Yes.
answered the question.
That's a good point. And there were a few questions that came in, which I think that your answered, just trying to wrap heads around. Um, this is dashboard browser based, like you access it on any device that you want.
Yep.
Um, so it does require internet, right? So if the internet goes down, is this does
Yeah.
this go down? Okay.
So currently, yes, yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. So, but the good news is that you can run it on a phone. So if you
Mm,
wanted to, like, say, if you, I actually did it. I submitted an order this morning. I'm at the NEBA conference here at Spring Forum in lovely Danvers, Massachusetts, and we were in a session this morning, and I submitted an order from my phone
okay.
using my cell signal. So you could just switch over to your cell provider and still have capability. And if you were using a device, you could tether it to your phone.
Cool. Okay. Um, is there a timeline for the EDI support? We know there's time to set that up, but just
Yeah. So
yeah.
so our goal is this spring to have a number of different vendors on board. But again, it's so dependent on, there's kind of two sides to this equation, and the vendor has work to do, and the vendor has other work to do, right? So, we're just slotting in and encouraging them to um, prioritize us as much as they can. But any support that any stores can give in that regard is welcome. Just like using batch, right? So like it's another my favorite is I want to put like, when are you getting on batch in my email signature from my store email because it's so important that publishers get on batch and it makes it easier for us as stores. Uh, the same idea. Put the pressure on them and hopefully they'll get it done.
Okay. There are a couple questions coming in about managing online orders in Omnibus, whether for pickup in store or shipping, if you
Yeah.
wanted to talk some more about that.
Yeah, so right now we're talking about again building um, our own e-commerce system. So when that's available, and I don't think that's going to be too long, that would integrate fully with our customer reservations module. It has come up that some stores that use Square also use Square's website and take orders from there, which generates an order in the Square system. We are looking at would we have the ability to pull that data? Square limits what you can do in some cases with their APIs. So it's not always just as simple as saying, oh, we want to do that because they just don't make it available like purchase orders. However, we are looking at to see checking the feasibility of if an order was created in the Square system, could we pull it and create that in our customer reservations platform and therefore feed it in? We're also looking at the ability to import them via like a CSV file or something like that to create the orders in our customer reservation system in Omnibus, but we would prefer to have it be no touch and have it be automatic. So that's our goal there. Um, with other platforms, it's really dependent on the availability of an API to be able to connect to get that data. So I would any particular systems that people are asking about, I would love to please do email me that. It's dave.lucy@abovethetreeline.com. Feel free to email me. Seriously, you can put my email in the chat and
Yeah. Okay.
I would
I
love
was
to
just say
know
you're
that.
inviting a slew of emails, but we
Yes.
want to know. Um, um, there was a good question, and it came in a few different ways about incorporating books that aren't in Edelweiss, like books from local independent authors, or the
Yeah.
fact that they sell lots of non-book items. So,
Yes.
yeah, if you
So
want to
this
talk.
is super exciting because so if you have the items in your library today, it will pull those items in. So they're like from my system, we sell beer and wine. So all of my beer and wine data actually goes into it's living in Omnibus as well. So I can actually do some interesting, analysis on that stuff, which I never really did in Square, right? Because I didn't really have that capability. But now it's pulling in, it's got all my sideline vendors, all my local side. We have tons of locals that we work with that for crafts and different bookish things, earrings and whatnot. All of that data gets pulled in and they're created in my Omnibus library. We are also working with a number of sideline vendors, notably chatting right now with the Indie Beacon Booklights, which is again a product that's made by a bookstore owner here in Massachusetts. That Indie Booklights, if you don't have them, get them. They're phenomenal. They sell really well, and the price point is fantastic. And we're working with them so that their items can live in the catalog, right, and be available for everybody. So that would mean instead of my version of the Indie Beacon Booklight item, it would be a standard version, just like a book. It would be across the board. You have the ability to create any item you want in the system. So any local authors or anything like that, you could create them. But if they're in any sort of other system too, we're looking at expanding beyond just the Edelweiss catalog to be able to pull in those sort of edge case items and have a source for that.
Cool.
But you
Okay.
can always manually create an item. That functionality is still there, so you can cover everything you've got. And if it's already in your library, it will be there automatically.
Okay. Um, some questions about are all the things that you showed included like in the standard pricing
Yep.
for Omnibus? Okay. Like, and
Yep.
they're not add-ons.
Nope.
Okay. Cool. Um, what else do we have? How long does it typically take a store to be up and running when they sign on to Omnibus? Like, what's the process like of getting people?
Yeah, it's pretty
onboard?
quick actually. You go in, you click a couple of buttons, you have to authorize the connection in your Square system. So there's sort of a step where you click a button that says, yes, I authorize this, and you have to be logged into your Square system in order to do that. So that makes the connection. Once
Okay.
that happens, there's a process that we need to run on our side to import all of your stuff into the Omnibus database. Once that's complete, yeah, you're up and running. That's it.
Awesome.
So it's really a matter of, um, you know, us running that import job, and depending upon how big your library is, that can take a little bit of, not too long,
Mhm.
but like I'm talking within hours, that's done.
Okay. Some questions came in about how will this integrate with indie commerce in any way? Will like is that a thing or like what would the relationship of this be to
We're
indie commerce?
talking to indie commerce. We
Okay.
really, it would be ideal if it could, but I don't know the answer to that question at this point. I use indie commerce at my store, so I would love for that to be able to happen.
And does this ordering system with Ingram replace iPage ordering?
So when we get Ingram set up on EDI, yes, you wouldn't need to
Okay.
go to iPage to order. You'd order electronically. As it stands at this moment, we don't have EDI with Ingram set up. We have it with Bookazine. So with Bookazine, you could EDI order right away. With Ingram, you would just hit the export button on the order that you created and paste those ISBNs into iPage. Like you can just create a list in iPage and put the whole list in with the quantities and boom, order it.
I'm going to read out loud. Molly asked what I think is a great question, not a duh question, that I think lays out really well our like hopes for the use case of Omnibus right now. So I'm a new bookstore and have been hesitant to go with Basil because of the cost. Since Indie Commerce and Book Manager are both on hold, even for getting on the wait list, I'm planning to go with Square for both POS and e-commerce. Adding Omnibus should allow me to avoid the expense of Basil, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Um,
the interesting, so one of the struggles that I know, so I run the Booksellers using Square Facebook group, and I have for, I don't know, however long it's been in existence. I started it like 8 years ago or something. That group over the years, so many stores have used the Square website as their website platform. And the conversations that we have had over the years about adding items so that, because in my store as of not using the Square website, I don't really care. Like the item name needs to be right, the SKU needs to be right, the price needs to be right, right? But really beyond that, I don't really care. It doesn't really matter. Nobody's looking at it but me internally, so customers aren't ordering that item, they're not seeing it. But when you're putting that item on your website, it's got to have cover art. It's got to have a good description. It can't be crappy AI slop descriptions that you get from the automatic creation of items in Square. I mean, you need more data. You need more information on there, and it needs to be good and it needs to look nice. In Omnibus, you can take a whole like. Let me just really quickly show this because we have a couple of minutes. But you could go into a catalog. Let's say I just want to find one with like a few titles in it, right? So this U Calgary catalog has 5 items in it. So what this is showing me right here is that all of these items, none of these items exist in my Square library, right? Because they have a little red circle thing. If they had a circle with a green check mark, that would tell me that they exist in there. So I can go in here and create. I can do something with these, whatever I want to do with them. I can add them to an order, and I can add them to a TBO, whatever. I can also just import them into my Square catalog. And what it'll do, one click, it's creating these items in my Square catalog with the cover art, with the description that's in Edelweiss, the normal, like little paragraph that you see in Edelweiss on an item. These items will get created, very quickly, and then they're available for me, right? I can just say they're available in my online store, and they're done. And now I don't need to go build anything. They're just done. So there's so much like that process right there to do that with the cover art and the descriptions and all that thing, that would have taken a half an hour, like that took what, 30 seconds?
Mhm.
And you can do it with a whole catalog if you wanted to. You could do it from an order. You can do it every time you order something. You can, as it goes through the process, by the time you need to ring somebody up for it, it'll be in your Square system. And the other thing is, if you're going to do pre-orders for books and you wanted to highlight them on your store, go into that catalog, create that item, in your Square library so that it's available on your website and you can start taking pre-orders for it right away, right away.
Okay, we have a few more minutes. Um, there's some questions about how Omnibus does or will handle multiple stores or locations.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So right now the platform is geared towards one location, one store.
Mhm.
However, you could at the moment, because of the way that specific parts of the functionality are sort of geared towards one store, um, eventually I think we will look at being able to have multiple stores on one sort of account. I would imagine that there would be additional fees for that because that would just make sense, like it's per store. So you could do though is have an omnibus account for each store. So if you had three stores, you'd have three omnibus accounts, one for each. Each has its own data. Um, I don't know, in a multi-store scenario, the one thing is the sort of if you ever have to like transfer inventory between the stores, like we would probably if a customer wanted to do that, we would seriously look at like, okay, how can we build functionality to support that? You're being able to order it, but order it from your other store and move it over, which is I think how it works with some of the bookstore specific platforms.
Okay. I'm trying to sneak as many into you as possible in the last 3 minutes. There seems to be some overlap with Edelweiss analytics in this.
Yeah.
Do we need analytics, have Omnibus? Would there be a reason to have both?
Yeah, so there's some functionality in analytics that is not in Omnibus at this point. That is a great question, and as sort of we move through time, we're kind of really looking at those two things and seeing um, is there is there a way to kind of mesh the two together? There's a lot of conversations about that, though. Nothing I can really get into terribly
Mm.
specifically, but I
Mm.
would say that there is functionality that you have if you have analytics today. I still have analytics on my account that you do not have in Omnibus. So for the time being, I would say, I would keep it until such time as we can figure out all those things. But we're just not there yet internally.
Cool. Okay. So, um, I'm not sure. Do you have time? You don't have time to show the how to make the variations for used books. Someone who's having a hard time doing that. Should they email us for help with that?
Yeah, email us. I
Yeah.
should basically just be putting used in the variation name. And if you already have used books in your environment, we generally pick that up when we do like our imports. We
Okay.
analyze what your records look like, and we say, oh yeah, they use the word used in the variation name, and then that will feed into the structure of your data specifically for your store. So if you're having difficulty with that, definitely email us, and we'll work with you to
Cool.
fix that.
So we got a great question, which I think is a nice transition as we come to the end to put the QR code back on the screen.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
no, you're fine.
Yeah, there you go.
And maybe if you want to just remind people about like what the next steps would be if this sounds good or if they want to learn
Yeah.
more. Yeah.
Yes, if you want to explore it yourself, by all means, just hit omnibus.edelweiss.com. You have to be logged into the way that it currently works is you need to be logged into your Edelweiss account, your traditional Edelweiss account, and then open up a new tab, hit that, and it will auto log you in. Eventually, Omnibus will have its own sort of login mechanism and it'll be tied to your Edelweiss account. You won't have to do anything special. It'll just open. But for now, open up Edelweiss, then open up a new tab with omnibus.edelweiss.com. You'll be prompted to answer some questions. We probably know who you are based on your login. So we'll probably say, hey, you're a bookstore, is that correct? Or you're a publisher, is that correct? And kind of route you down different paths. Um, you can again sign up for a free trial and we will connect to your store and pull in some of your data so that you can play around with it and see if you like it. Or if you would rather not go down that path at all, or if you're not using Square today, you can explore a fully stocked demo store and play around with it all you want. And again, if you have any questions or if you have any feedback, when you get in there in the lower right hand corner is a little speech bubble thing, hit that Send us feedback. We'd love it. We want your ideas. We want we want to make this super functional for bookstores. So
Wonderful.
thank
And
you
just
so
to,
much for the time today.
yeah.
Really,
And
really.
I just wanted to remind everyone that we will be sending the recording for this out if you registered for it, and that we'll also have the links to the office hours. Yeah, not to step on you,
Yeah,
David.
no, perfect. No, thank you for reminding me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
don't forget the office hours because those are great spots where we just have a Zoom session. You can jump on, ask a couple of questions, jump off, whatever you want to do. Cool. Thanks again, everybody. Really appreciate the time and attention, and we're really excited about this, and I hope you are too.